And okay, who's doing taking the minutes? I suppose there's someone there. Conflict of interests? No, from the committee. Okay. Confirmation of the minutes that were held on the 17th of February. I'll take it as read. Can I have a mover? Confirmation of those minutes? Okay.
Happy to move.
Christine has seconded. Okay. Any matters arising? No, I think we're moving on. Okay. This meeting, there's not a lot on the agenda, more updates from those who have been sort of operationally managing the place. Fiona, there'll be the statement of intent, so we can work through that. And then at the general business, I think we'll have an overview from the Mayor and Reece as to where the future lies. Okay, so the next is the monthly financial report. I suppose pass that to you, Fiona, to talk to.
Yeah, as this is the March report, there has been no impact on our income. So really, I'm sort of hoping to finish off April in the next day or two, and then that will show the effect of a month with no landing fees.
Okay.
The forecast column is based on basically having only 5% of Air New Zealand and Sounds Air for the rest of the financial year, and bringing maintenance down accordingly.
Yes, I think like every business, it's just work in progress until we actually get a better stable position. You know,
Yeah.
we just don't know until we've actually got some sort of trend. Okay, so any questions, committee, on the financials? Okay, can we have someone move that they be, okay, again, I'll second it. So Christine moved, I second. Righto, next up, the SOI. Now you've been working, Reece, you've been involved in discussions obviously with trying to get a better picture for Fiona. Have you got anything that you want to add?
Not really. Me and Fiona just caught up a few minutes ago. She's probably the best person to talk about
okay,
where the SOI is. We worked on it last week.
What we've done is we've based the SOI on 50% of Air New Zealand's landing fees, 50% of Sounds Air, 5% of skydivers, and 25% of the other users of the airfield. And we've also brought back maintenance in line with the 50% of the two major players. Reece and I had discussions about where possible things like mowing and gardening and things like that, trying to get council to do it rather than outside contractors, because with council we get charged at cost. So we've tried everything that we can think of to bring down the costs. You'll also notice that except for depreciation, there is no inflation adjusted figures for the following 2 years. Again, because it's crystal ball, isn't it? You know,
so those numbers we came up with are really based around best indications we've received from other parties. So obviously the 50% Air New Zealand return, the 50% Sounds return, the 5% skydive return is based around conversations I've had with each party and kind of the premise that they've indicated coming back at for the next kind of 9 to 10 months, which, you know, will lead us to the end of this calendar year, which will obviously show in our business books for the next year. So that's kind of looking at a single flight a day from Air New Zealand and a single flight a day from Sounds Air. Now, these may be different. Hopefully, we're under the number and they're actually higher than that, but I think a pragmatic view is what we've put down. The skydivers are going to be the hardest hit, and even at level 1, I'm not sure how much they'll be able to operate, or even if there'll be a market for both those companies to come back as they were. Talking to both parties, that the outlook for them is pretty bleak, and just in this room, their conversations are around possibly hibernating one of those two operations for a year or so and seeing how things pick up, which is great in theory. The only downside to that being aviation is that planes cost money, whether they fly or whether they sit on the ground. So personally, I don't know how well that plan will pan out for them. Obviously, insurance and things like that is through the roof. So yeah, we'll just have to watch that area, hence why the 5% seems pretty doom and gloom, but really they've only got the domestic market to look at. Hopefully, if this trans-Tasman bubble comes into play, they may have a bit more scope. But yeah, then the 25% others, obviously based around the other helicopter and agricultural operations, GA. Flight schools have obviously taken a massive shunt. So yeah, I actually haven't heard anything from L3, CTC, whatever they're called these days, or Ardmore or any of the others to indicate what they're doing or when they'll be operating. But again, I think the likes of L3, who mostly kind of service the international market, they're going to be way down as well. So 25% again is quite a pragmatic view. Hopefully things are better than that, but unfortunately it is what it is. Okay.
Well, thank you. It's always been difficult, SOIs, in the best of times, because it's such a long period out, and more so this case. So thank you guys for the work. The recommendation that we as committee adopt the draft Taupo Airport Statement of Intent for 2022. So I'll move that it's... Do we have a seconder? Kathy? Okay, thank you.
Yeah, there just needs to be, John, I know it was sort of a bit late in the case, but I flicked you and Jess an email saying, could we rewrite the blurb at the top, which currently talks about what a wonderful growth phase we're in.
Yeah, Jess and I will talk later. We've got a convo on this stuff anyway. Thanks, Fiona, for that.
Okay. Well, moving on to growth. The next item is an update on the airport project. So I don't know who's talking to that, Jess or John or Reese.
I'm probably the best, I guess, in terms of what's actually happening. So we're all in the know that things are progressing. The car park is obviously the first port of call. I met with Phil and the design team who were designing the car park last week, and threw around some really good ideas and kind of outlaid, from an operational and functionality point of view, what TAA would like to see in this car park. It's a bit of a different ballpark building a car park for an airport than maybe a council. There's a few other challenges in there. So we're hoping by tomorrow there should be 2 concepts that we can run by the steering committee and kind of show them what we're looking at for the car park. And I think Phil will present that, and he should by tomorrow afternoon come out with a date for the steering committee to get together and run through those ideas. The other part of it is we have started kind of the early stages of discussing what the terminal looks like. So the initial plan of copying and pasting Kerry Kerry's terminal down to where we are, the concept is still there, but we're going to modify the design slightly just because it doesn't quite fit with what we need, and the footprint and the layout and the way it's structured. So again, we'll have a design crew kind of modify the plans of what Kerry Kerry used. Theirs has kind of got an L-shaped building to a degree, and that was mostly around constraints on their site that they couldn't build certain shapes. So ours will probably look more like a rectangle, and the extra room on the side would actually be the security area for if and when we need to screen for AVSEC. So it's kind of a good way of future-proofing, but still keeping that cost down. So yeah, there's not too much to update, except for the fact that by tomorrow afternoon, we should have a date for a steering committee group, get together and run through what I think will be a pretty good car park design.
Thank you. Any other requirements, John?
No, I was just going to, Jess, can you just talk about the drawdown of the money, please?
Morning. So if you aren't aware that in the last 2 weeks we have had the $1 million come through from MB, which is the first payment, which is fantastic, from the Provincial Growth Fund. So that is in the bank. And as I understand it, the 870k from the Ministry of Transport has been banked as well. So we are 1.8 in the black for the project, which is fantastic. So as I understand it, Neil is going to draw across the money from council as of the 1st of July. So the project will be full steam ahead from them.
So what's happened is there's already been 1.87 paid by council to the airport as an equity injection, which is 1 million from the MB and 870,000, which is part of the agreement that council and the MOT would fund the, if you like, underfunding from MB.
Okay. Well, that's great news, guys. You know, early stages of this, we were a bit concerned that they'd reappropriate the money, but we've had a nice letter from Phil Taupo to Jess, giving us full steam ahead. So well done, everyone. Okay, there's a recommendation that we receive the update, which we have. So do we need to move that, Tina? Well, I will.
Yes, yeah, you do.
Okay. Kathy's muted. Yeah, she seconded it. So I've moved that we received that update. Thank you. Next item, 4.4, the General Manager's report. So, Reece, you can share your predictions and in a nice way, please.
Yep. Yeah. I'll be as nice as I can.
Okay.
So, sure, we're all pretty privy to the fact that we've got nothing going on really at the airport. It's been a pretty bleak month, and it's been quite a trying time actually. Not just, you know, obviously being quieter, you'd think the airport would be easier to run, but unfortunately we do have a lot of fixed costs and things like that. So as Fiona explained in the statement of intent, the biggest thing we're trying to do is cut costs to an absolute minimum without affecting our compliance or our operator certificate. So we've done pretty well in that respect, but the downside is it's meant myself and Kim are working some pretty extreme hours, alternating weekends and things like that, carrying out runway inspections, and I'm out there shooting birds and things like that. So it's been entertaining, but I suppose it's a short-term pain for a long-term gain, and I do see us coming out of this. Hopefully in 3 years we'll be better than we were when we first went into it. So yeah, but on the Air New Zealand front, they've come back stating that they won't be putting in the Auckland Taupo route until level 1, which is a bit of a kick, but to be honest, quite expected, and I can completely understand from their point of view why. Level 2 doesn't allow them to fill an aircraft, and flying a Q300 with 20 passengers on it is going to cost them money. So they can only do that. You know, the 900 mil grant only goes so far, and I guess for them, they've got to take a pragmatic view what's not going to put them out of business. So the positive side of it, though, is that they have guaranteed a flight a day, 7 days a week, come level 1. So it's great to have that guarantee. And behind that is the notion that they really want to get back to, you know, what we would call BAU as soon as they can. Obviously, this is going to be demand driven. And, you know, the way airlines operate, everything's calculated, and understandably so, there's big money involved. So whilst the initial kind of hit looks pretty average, I think the long term is good for us. So the way I kind of worded it in the email is that whilst we are going to take a hit through level 2, come level 1, we should be better than a lot of other ports. You know, you look at Rotorua, who have multiple Wellington, Auckland, Christchurch flights per day, and we look and they're getting 1 Wellington flight at the moment. Well, not even now. Hopefully, if we go level 2, they'll get that. And just to put it in perspective, Wellington Rotorua link was the weakest link for Rotorua, and it's dropped out every second year because they can't fill the seats. So when we look at their full schedule and the fact that Rotorua are potentially losing their Christchurch link as well, which is their strongest link, when we get back to level 1, having 50% of our operation, we're actually doing quite well in the scheme of things. So trying to keep a positive spin on it, which is good. There is another notion that the Q300s will be having a long-term sleep, which means potentially a bigger plane for us. So we'll see how that goes. But I'm not holding my breath. Sounds there. David will probably be able to tell you more about sounds. I haven't heard too much, but what I did see during lockdown was a schedule based around Wellington return flight per day. And that was, I think, for every business day, which would be good. That'll give us, you know, a good link. Myself and David have been talking about a possible option, and Sounds have put a proposal in for an Auckland Taupo link during level 2, which I'm in favour of in a way, as long as we kind of go about it politically. And I think we'll need to put a little bit more work into how that looks and the biggest bit is how we approach Air New Zealand about it.
Can I just come in, David? I think you're on the phone before this meeting with Air New Zealand. Do you want to update us?
Correct. Yeah, if you don't mind. So I've just got off the phone to Ruben, and Reese, I tried to just give you an update. So Ruben is undertaken to go to his superiors because I've told him about the offer from Sounds Air. And I said, well, the last thing we want to do is upset you and your company, Ruben. So I want your blessing before we go ahead with this business flight to Auckland. But the offer is, we've got a draft proposal from them to, I don't know if you can share it at all, Reese, but anyway, we can share that later on. So basically, he's undertaken to go away, and we'll hear back from Air New Zealand possibly by about lunchtime, 1 o'clock today, as to are they comfortable with that. And I would not be comfortable going ahead, Mr. Chairman, if Air New Zealand chuck their toys out of the cot. And I think we'd all feel the same about that, because that's the last people we want to upset, because that's the whole basis of going ahead with this new terminal and all that sort of thing. As Reese, who's got a great relationship with Air New Zealand too, there's not too many people they've guaranteed a flight in level 1. So I think we've done well to get that. Of course, it's part of their rescue package from the government too, that they've got to return back to the existing ports anyway. So so where it's said, I just wanted to feel from the committee about that. So that sounds about the Sounds Air proposal that they drop into Auckland. They'll use Barrier Air's port, check-in and all that sort of thing. They said they can do it at the drop of a hat. I suppose as of right, they could possibly do that anyway. Even without our blessing as such, but of course we would want to be all on the same page on this. But I would suspect it's a flight that we would not promote. Oh, there he is there.
Can you see that?
Good man.
Yep.
So that's just the first cut of it. You can see a 7:30 flight in the morning on a Tuesday. take 9 people, get there by 8 o'clock. And yeah, I don't know what the feeling is out there. It would be a flight that I prefer not to promote, but just for business, you know, basically business, call it a business flight as such.
David, can I ask, is there a demand for an Auckland flight at this particular point?
Reese and would probably be able to answer that. Who would know? I think it's, yeah, I wouldn't know. I possibly wouldn't use it. I don't think. I don't know. But the option's there. I'm sure some people would. My brother probably would. You know, he's got to get to Auckland every Monday morning, so he'd have to go on Tuesday, but he possibly would. But
yeah, I mean, personally, I think demand. Air New Zealand obviously run the numbers pretty well, and I know the way, especially Reuben operates, and things are pretty well calculated.
yeah,
I think their numbers are probably not justified because they've got to fill 20 seats. But then we look at a PC12 that Sounds run. I mean, the big challenge for them is the fact that they've only got 9 seats anyway, and how much effect is social distancing going to have on them? If they can only fill 5 of those seats, is the flight viable? Now, I certainly wouldn't, as the council, this isn't my place, but this is my view, I wouldn't be offering to extend the 3-seat buy-in for the Auckland route.
no. And they haven't requested that either, have they?
Can
No,
I
they
just, what they have requested? Have they asked for any? Just
Gareth's got the exact details, or they might be there. I think some easement of the landing charges. That's all. It's
Yeah,
pretty,
that's what yeah. But
yeah. It's not much. There's not much of a financial application, but it's basically based around the landing charges.
So what is the risk to the TAA? I mean, obviously, as a private airline, they can do this run. You've been open and honest with Air New Zealand, David.
Very much so. That my first thought at the time is last thing, we don't want to upset our biggest customer, do we? So, so I'm waiting for their blessing. Reuben's undertaken today. I said, well, you come back, say if you're comfortable, we'll probably run with it. We'll have to put it to the councillors and things like that.
But we stop Sounds Air from operating this, Reese.
well, effectively, as the airport company, they need our approval. They'll need a gate. They'll need terminal access.
Okay.
And if they're talking about discounted landing fees, like the unfortunate thing, I think we're at the stage where our charity has ended. And, you know, I was pretty adamant with other tenants around the aerodrome that once we got the news that Air New Zealand aren't coming back until level 1, any scope for charity work has really gone. And, you know, whilst I'm super supportive of this Sounds run, not for anything other than the community, at the end of the day, I won't be backing any discounted landing fees because it's work for us and we need the revenue.
Yeah, I also have concerns that if this doesn't work, how does that impact on them financially? And does that in the long run end up with us losing a sector to Wellington? And also, you know, the fact, have they got a definitive timeline as to how long they're going to actually continue to fly Taupo Auckland return until, I mean,
Yeah, well, this is what me and David have been talking about. And, you know, the biggest thing Sounds need to concentrate on is getting the Wellington route back up and running. That's their main, it should be their main focus. And I'm not here to tell them how to do their job, but that's what I'd be doing. The other thing around timeline is that if they did go ahead and do this, without being kind of sadistic, we all know how Air New Zealand operate. And if Sounds are encroaching on Air New Zealand's patch in level 1, we all know how that ends. And it isn't good for small people. So
I couldn't agree more, Reese.
That's just their business, and that's just the way they operate. And I mean, let's face it, what happened to Jetstar last year? Jetstar are a pretty big company. So this again isn't my place. This is where Sounds need to do their homework. This is where they need to invest time into demand. Again, for the airport, the revenue is great. I welcome it in the revenue, and I welcome it in the kind of, I suppose, the community aspect. But I am very conscious of the political outfall and also the viability for Sounds. That'd be my concerns.
Well, this could have a negative impact on us from both Air New Zealand and Sounds. If we
Yeah.
potentially lost both links, it would be devastating. And I think it
And of
needs.
course, we've got the businessman in town saying anything we can get, you know. So it's going to be, it's a hard decision. That's why once I think, you know, put it to the councillors tomorrow just to get their view as well. But
Excuse me a minute. Can I just stop you a second? Sorry.
sorry,
This,
John.
this is public.
Just say again,
This conversation is public.
No, it's in confidence. Yeah, I don't think.
This current conversation's public. We're just
Okay, sure,
so
sure.
I think if we get into detail, we might want to think how we talk about it.
Yeah,
Okay.
fair enough too. Yeah, so that's where it is. I think myself and Reece and Mr. Chair will work behind the scenes. I will relay back when we hear from Air New Zealand about it, and then go from there. And perhaps, you know, I take on board the cost implications. What we should add that up and just see exactly how much it is. So I think that would be a good thing. Yeah. Hopefully we will make a call. Kathy and Christine, what do you think as to how to make this call?
Well, I think possibly a discussion tomorrow.
Tomorrow, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, level 2 Sounds have absolutely guaranteed they're back into the Wellington stuff straight away. So, and they've got the forward, you know, basically contact energy corrections, all them doc. They've got to get down there as soon as they can anyway. Yeah, Ruben, Air New Zealand just text me now. As soon as I get a steer from our head of networks, we'll call you back, hopefully around lunchtime. So
I think also the message from the government as to how long they possibly predict level 2 will dictate whether it is a viable option. So again, we won't be able to make a call fully till 4 o'clock. I think I've got a steer from you, Reece, the charity's over. We need to run us as a business. I'm sure Sounds Air are fully aware of how Air New Zealand operate in terms of making their business most efficient. So that will all come out in the next few days as we discuss options. So thank you.
Yeah, just having said it, understand that, Christine probably know that, you know, we've got to do everything for our business people to get this. They're going to be cold off like the proverbials. If it costs us, you know, just a small thing, I'm sure the community would be happy to front that to help. It might be 10 or 12 businesses out, but yeah, that's a political discussion. But I understand where Reece is coming from, you know, there. So.
Just for the committee's information, Reece and I did calculate that basically we had 12, the end of this financial year and next financial year, we have enough cash in the bank to cover those costs at this 50%.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So one other topic, I've got two more that I'll need to run by the group. The first one is on the back of how the charity's over. We have our obstacle limitation survey due. It was due for, I think, June or July. Kim will be able to correct me. We've got a deferment, and as far as they'll defer it is November. So this is a fixed cost. We have to do it within a 5-year period. Every airport has to do it. The plan is to do it as cheaply as possible to get minimum compliance, which keeps us. Sorry, say.
Could you explain what that means, please?
Yeah. So the OLS obstacle limitation survey, basically it's a map of the fans leading into the aerodrome. So it pretty much measures from the surface up to an X amount, depending on our fan. And it checks that there's no penetrations in our conical surface leading into the aerodrome. So pretty much it's given us insurance that no planes are going to hit anything if they're doing the right thing and flying by the rules. So it is an essential piece of work, and it is something that I normally like to aim for best practice and exceed the minimum requirement and get a really good survey done. But especially, you know, in a place like Taupo where things are developing around the town quite quickly, the downside is these are quite expensive, and to get full-blown aerial LiDAR surveys is fairly expensive, especially at a time when we've got no money. So to put it in perspective, the cheapest option is 18,000, just over $18,000. So the thinking, and me and Kim have kind of thought about this long and hard, our thinking is that we'll get that bare bones basic package because we have to have it before November at latest. And next year we have a PGF aerial LiDAR, which is free to us, which is the kind of bespoke survey. So that's the top of the range. So our thinking is that we'll get this OLS done as cheap as we can to give us compliance for the rest of this year. We get our aerial LiDAR done mid next year. And then once that's submitted for the rest of the 5-year period, we'll have an up-to-date kind of good idea of what's going on around our aerodrome. So hopefully that makes sense.
Totally, thank you.
Cool. So I have, just on that as well, obviously being 18K, I've spoken to Jasmine at MOT and just said that they're going to have to front some money for that. And she's pretty open to it. So she said she'll come back to me hopefully this week. Once we've got that, and I was waiting for this meeting to inform everyone else, then I'll pass it over to Kim to book in when we can actually get that survey completed and get everything sent to Aeropath.
Reese, can I ask what the top model is? If we're looking at an 18,000, what?
Yeah, so it would have been about 35K plus.
Okay, well, I'm of the opinion that there is no way we should be compromising any safety by cutting costs. I understand that it will still make you compliant, but I just think that, we need to be mindful that safety is absolutely paramount.
Yeah, so safety won't be compromised. It's more, the way it works is the more you pay, you can focus on more areas. So the further and further from the aerodrome we can go. The base package gives us the safety element, basically. So we wouldn't compromise safety of the aerodrome. It's just more, there may be things around town that myself and Kim have looked at and gone, oh, that's cropped up over the years. And, we might want to look at, say, a development that's coming up somewhere in Taupo. And that might be one of our points of focus in a top spec bespoke LiDAR. Whereas with the base minimum, we're basically ensuring that our approach fans, which is where the risk is, are safe and compliant. So hopefully that makes sense.
Does the LiDAR next year pick up some?
So the LiDAR will be able to actually go further afield and get a really good idea of what's going on around the region.
So the interim will save some money within 6 months, we've got a full spec. Basically, so Kim will be able to tell you, I think it was May or June that the aerial LiDAR, PGF LiDAR would go ahead. And we've had confirmation that will go ahead. So we're basically...
Sorry if I can interrupt you there. So what was meant to happen is, speaking with council, we were meant to do a PGF aerial LiDAR survey, which would have captured that would have been the Rolls-Royce version. Because of COVID-19, that has all got postponed until next year now, 2021. But unfortunately, as Reese has pointed out, we still have to meet the 5-yearly requirement, which is this year. So that's another cost that we wouldn't have had a huge cost if that aerial survey had gone ahead. But it has been pushed out till next year. But what we'll do is just a ground-based analysis of the band, which will give us the information that we need for Aeropath, but then we'll tap into this aerial survey next year when it's completed.
Are you happy with that, committee? It sounds like the safety aspects covered off, and we've got a 6-month lag from having it Rolls-Royce.
Yeah, I just didn't want Kim and Reese to feel that they had to cut costs potentially to compromise. So when we've got money in the bank to pay potentially for the next 1 or 2 years to assist in other areas, I just think that it's important that they're comfortable, and if they're comfortable, we have confidence that they're doing the right thing.
Yeah, so safety is obviously always primary factor, and it's more, I prefer to aim for the top spec, but I think in the given times, this is the one excuse where we can say, look, we'll we'll go for compliance and pick up the, like Chris said, the Rolls Royce later next year.
So you comfortable, committee? Okay.
Yeah.
Bruce?
And the last one from me is we have a little mate called Gary Davis. I don't know if anyone knows Gary Davis, but he owes us money for quite a while, 14 months to be exact. It's getting it's turning into a bit of a pattern. And
excuse me, I think we should not have this conversation.
Okay.
Cool. That's all from me then.
Okay, anything else, John? As manager, you have anything to say?
No, I was just trying to keep us off certain topics, that's all. So we're all right. Did you want to just, Reece, did you want to quickly just give an overview around the jets, other things? Because I know some of our elected members are interested in some of that, so it might be at a high level perhaps.
Roy Giddens, where do I know that name from?
Who's that?
No, we're talking about jet.
No, I don't think so. Just a moment. I'll just have a look in the.
David, you're on.
Gareth.
You're live.
Yeah.
Right, Reece, perhaps.
Yeah.
I think he's on the phone.
I'm trying.
It's right, I've muted David. It's okay. Right.
Right,
So
cool.
it's just a bit of an overview around the
Yeah.
jets, because I know some of our elected members are interested in that.
Yeah. So some of the stuff with the jet ops is basically it's just essential travel. The hows and the whys, we don't necessarily ask too much. As long as the permits are in place, then the approval's in place. So whether that be from MOT, CAA, Ministry of Transport. So, for example, one jet was from Garden City Helicopters, who do a lot of life flight stuff around the country. They had CAA officials on board doing proving flights. Yeah, that it's effectively, in a word, it's transport. And whilst these aircraft may look flashy, they really are a mode of transport. And yeah, it's probably not my place to comment on viability of it. Definitely not my business. As I said, the airport is open for essential ops, and as long as myself and Kim are satisfied that these aircraft have the approvals in place, then they're free to come and go effectively. I understand from the political side, it does create a certain look, I guess. But yeah, from an aviator, it is just a plane in simple terms. So.
Thank you, Reece. Obviously, there were ratepayers that were concerned, and you answered that question. And as I've gone back to them, so long as they have the CAA and MOT approval, there is nothing that the airport can do about that. But it was in level 4 that was the concern.
Yeah, and I completely understand I suppose the perceived look, you know, but yeah, ultimately, if approval's in place, and in fact, some of these flights are actually carrying the officials themselves. So yeah, it's not our place to shun them away or anything like that. The money's good anyway. So
Yeah, but thank you for the comms, Reece. You know, and council helped put that out, so that was covered off.
Yeah.
Anything else you got, Reece?
Nothing from me. I don't know if Kim has anything she might want to discuss.
Yeah, no, mine's more operational. So I think, as we've discussed, we'll keep it at this higher level. So I think you've spoken about everything that we've talked about of late. Yep.
I think the only thing that really would be at an operational level of interest is the apron markings have been completed for the Q300. So pretty good tick in the box for us. It shows Air New Zealand that we're still pretty keen on facilitating them to the best practice. So Kim's been working the last week or two to get that done, and it's probably 95% complete now, Kim. Is that right?
Yeah. So they're out there today just completing it. So that was the creating the horizontal separation for aircraft on the apron. So Air New Zealand did have an issue with it before, so we have now rectified it. And we've actually used this quiet time to do those works on the apron. So it's actually worked out well. Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you all for the meeting. There's a recommendation that we receive the General Manager's report. So I've got Christine and I'll second that, or Kathy. Thank you, everyone. Definitely trying times in business and sort of trying to see the future for the town, but the airport is a good story in that we are thinking 50 years out for the new terminal, not just the short term. So that's, and great support from government that they've backed us. So thanks, Reece and Kim, for all the work. David, for your work behind the scenes with Air New Zealand and Sounds Air. And yeah, well, I think there's no confidential business this time round. So I suppose that is the meeting ended. Thank you.